Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Greg Halliday, but everybody calls me Hal, except for my mother, still calls me Greg. But I'm the president of Anchor Marketing. I've been involved with Anchor as both a client years ago and in the past 13 years, actually with the agency. I've spent my entire 32-year career in manufacturing in one form or fashion. And I'm excited to talk about what we have on our agenda today. So I'll jump right into it. So today, I'm hoping to share some ideas based on what I've seen in working with manufacturer marketing teams over the past 30 years, both as a marketing director for a manufacturer and as an agency working with client marketing teams. When we're deciding on a topic for today's meeting, I wanted to avoid talking about marketing tactics and offerings. Many of the other presenters have already done a great job with that, and so we tried to come up with something that was still relevant. And we decided to focus on one of the most challenging tasks companies face today, and that's building a marketing team when it's hard to find talent in virtually every walk of life. I've seen a lot in the last 32 years. I've seen some successful marketing teams. I've seen a couple train wrecks and everything in between. And I'm hoping I can share some tips for building your own talented marketing team. This session will offer the most value if you're one or two people. You might be that one person marketing department who suddenly inherited everything that can loosely be connected or categorized as marketing, or you own and lead a company where marketing maybe isn't your passion and you're trying to find people who can fill that role. So let's start by looking at the current situation today. Where are the opportunities? What's holding us back? Finding talent has gotten to be as important as developing the people that we already have. Over the years, three things have changed quite a bit, and one is still constant. Every industry is struggling with talent shortages. The way people get their information is changing. I can't remember the last time I read a newspaper. And freelancers have embraced the gig economy. And we'll talk more about the pros and cons of freelancers in a few minutes. The only constant is that marketing was, is, and will always be a messy business. So what are some of the prerequisites for an effective marketing team? One of the telltale signs of a solid marketing strategist is what they're interested in looking at. If you bring a marketing person in and they only want to talk about social media or magazine ads, that's somewhat of a red flag. Because if someone's going to be effective, they need to know how you add value, how you make money. They're also going to want to know a bit from your strategic plan, how you got to where you are, where you want to go, what you're willing to do to get there. I read quite a bit, and I'm sharing a couple books here I think that are helpful for you to get these things on paper in a format your marketing team will understand. Another constant I've seen is what I call the marketing team life cycle. Growing a marketing team is like running a marathon. It takes time. And just about every company I've worked with follows this evolution. An upstart company, the founder's doing everything. Sooner or later, they look for that marketing person to add them so that they can help relieve some of that burden. As that marketing person's role grows, they start looking for bringing in some specialized expertise. Maybe a marketing person is a writer, but they need a web developer. So they start looking for some of those specializations. It's not uncommon for an agency to get involved as they grow, and a good agency is going to support that growing internal team. And if everyone does their job and the company continues to grow, that internal team starts to lead the agency. And the ultimate success is when that internal team outgrows the agency and just relies on them for special projects or to be somewhat of a team player. So let's talk about the individuals that have the most impact on the marketing team. And that's the owners or founders or leadership or what have you. Generally, marketing is not their passion. They've worked hard to get to where they are, and they know every detail of their business. Oftentimes owners and founders don't understand digital marketing, younger generations, um, it's not their forte. And that last bullet is something that not a lot of people want to tell their boss. And I sooner or later I have to tell clients this, is that the owner sometimes thinks that all of their customers are just like they are, but oftentimes they aren't. And that can be dangerous. And that's a key epiphany that owners need to have early in their marketing planning if they want to have a successful marketing campaign. And then let's not forget about who could be the most important overworked person in a growing company, the one-person marketing department. I was this person long ago for a company I joined before I joined this agency. And at first, this job can be really fun, but eventually that inbox becomes a dumping ground for anything that even sounds like marketing. And sooner or later, they're asked to do things they've never done, or it's really not in their wheelhouse, and they start looking for help just to get some of those things taken care of. So how do we find talented marketing people? I think back to the old days. You'd run an ad in the Sunday paper, and everyone looking for work would read the want ads, and you'd receive resumes and identify candidates, conduct interviews, and pick the best one and extend an offer. And those good old days are gone, and it's a much different world today. Nearly all marketing talent is going to look at your company as it's portrayed on your website, your social media, some of your communications. They're going to evaluate you before they answer your ad. And if you don't make a positive impression with some of that talent, you may not even know that they're looking at your company. Some people use social media to investigate your company. Some people use Glassdoor, which I think has its limitations. Glassdoor is not always good view of what a company looks like. Digital job ads obviously have gained a lot of momentum, but there is one exception, is digital job advertisements don't do a lot to help you identify top talent, because most of that top talent is not actively looking to make a change. Some people look to interns, and interns are great. You can find people that you can grow and develop, but they're a long-term play. Oftentimes interns don't have any experience in your industry, and they still need someone to lead them. So more recently, companies have started to throw their hands up. They've gotten comfortable hiring freelancers or leveraging agency talent because they've just struggled to find somebody that can step into that leadership role, or someone who can do some of the things who has a formal marketing background. So who should build and manage your team? My advice is to let someone who understands marketing strategy do that. If you're fortunate enough to have a marketing director, they should be able to lead this effort. If not, you may need to look to a third party to help guide you, but doing so is going to ensure that you have the right people in the right seats, that they have what they need to be successful. Years ago, a headhunter was kind of a dirty word. They were like the telemarketer of the job market. But consider this, that again, top talent is most often not looking for a job. It doesn't mean that they're unwilling to make a change. They might just need to be asked. And hiring people that are employed may be a better option than interviewing people that were not able to find work in the past few years. Imagine if you're the hiring person in your company, and somebody tells you that they've tried, and over the last year they just haven't been able to find work. That's got to be a little bit of a red flag in today's job market. And then consider the fact too that top talent is scarce. So let's talk more about freelancers. One of the best examples of using freelancers is the NFL. And players are technically on a team, they're team members, but they tend to work for more than one team throughout their career. And that quarterback is the big picture leader that understands the strategy. They can't block, they can't punt, they can't catch passes. I think they were making fun of Tom Brady last week when he was trying to receive a pass. And those quarterbacks are hard to find. And when you look at the top earnings, Aaron Rodgers, $50 million a year. Well, there's probably, less than a dozen real top tier quarterbacks in the NFL. Where that long snapper, Josh Harris for the Chargers, $1.4 million annual salary. And that's largely because there's probably hundreds of long snappers coming out of college that they could hire. So it's like anything, it's supply and demand. And again, those quarterbacks are really difficult to find. So let's talk about freelancers a little bit more. So I'll tell you a little story is that years ago, I had a whole team of web programmers in our office, as many as 3 or 4 full-time programmers. And the problem that we faced was that our programming workload fluctuated and was rarely steady. And I remember walking into the agency, I wasn't the president at that time, and all the web programmers were cleaning out the basement. I could tell by the look on their faces that carting an old sofa up the basement stairs was not what they signed up for. And I said, what in the heck is going on? And they said that they didn't have any work, and the boss felt like he was paying them to sit on their hands. And so he decided to put them to work, which was a horrible idea. Paid programmers, definitely don't want to be furniture movers. And I could empathize with the boss. He's paying these people to sit there, and we didn't have work for them to do. So freelance workers really became a solution to that. We only pay web programmers when work is needed. It accommodates that fluctuation in the work, and we don't have to pay them week in, week out if we have a lull in our workload. And then eventually we converted all of our web development workforce to freelance developers. As 1099 employees, we don't have as much control over their activity, but that's really never been a problem. You need to talk with your HR person, make sure that you manage freelancers properly. They're not employees. You can't treat them as such. Freelancers or 1099 employees are not a way to dodge payroll taxes, things like that. So you have to make sure that you do things the right way and have a contract with them. There's certain things that both parties need to acknowledge in writing. You may not want your freelance graphic designer working for your arch rival. So there's things like that you want to stipulate in that contract. There's a little more planning involved with freelancers. After all, they work for more than one client. However, hiring a freelancer usually means you have a specialist that's an expert in whatever you ask them to do, and they're not a generalist that has to try and figure it out. Another huge advantage to using freelancers or an agency is their scalability. From a dollars and cents standpoint, imagine if you could hire a diverse team that's comprised of maybe 1/10 of a website programmer, 1/5 of a graphic designer, 1/4 of a copywriter, a media buyer maybe only working a few days a month. So if you compare the cost of hiring all those roles to just piecemealing it out with freelancers, it's much easier to scale the growth of your company until you can justify hiring somebody full-term or full-time to fill those roles. And there is one exception. This effective marketing leadership is difficult to assign to a freelancer. It can be done, but it's challenging. And that person really needs to be more immersed in your company. And freelancers and employees, they need direction. Your marketing leadership is going to provide that direction. So an important point here, the best marketing leadership has a high level of understanding of your business. They're the quarterback. They know who should be on the team and what the team members should be doing. And they also know how to keep ownership informed. I strongly recommend that a marketing professional lead the team building and management effort in your company. That could very well be someone that you hire and they grow in their role while employed by you. In fact, I've seen some of the best marketing people come up through the ranks in a company because they really learn everything about that company. You just need to make sure that marketing is their primary role and not a sideline to a different role. You know, you don't want your plant manager in charge of marketing. If your founder is an engineer, well, that founding engineer may not be the best marketing leadership. One area I do see some overlap is with HR. HR and marketing are almost converging sometimes when it comes to that internal audience, keeping employees engaged, et cetera, et cetera. So another important item is the top talent. You know, how are they going to show interest in your company? Well, they'll look at your website, your social media, information that you share, and they're going to evaluate whether or not they think they can help you. It's also important that you prepare your company to enable top talent to do what they do best. Marketing and leadership wants to know they have the support of the owners and they have the latitude to do a great job. So when I think of some of the skill sets, I'm sorry, wrong key. So I think of the skill sets that you need on your team. Some of the skills you'd be looking for is brand strategy. That's usually that top level individual or group of individuals that really understand the big picture. They understand the business model of the company. They understand what the company objectives are. They're those leaders where they understand all the different components of a marketing team. For example, myself, I could never program a website. I certainly can't do graphic design. I'm not a copywriter, but I do understand what all those people do. And I'm more of the brand strategist. I'm defining, how clients or bring value to their customers, what their unique selling propositions are, et cetera, et cetera. And that next skill set is sometimes overlaps with the brand strategist, is what I call account planning. And an account planner is really the advocate for the customer. They're the ones that look for those unmet needs that customers have and try and put that into the company's value proposition. The creative director is the one who takes the mundane, kind of boring strategy and they make that something exciting and memorable and things that people will pay attention to. The best creative directors are writers who also have an eye for seeing good creative design, but usually writers first. Copywriters are pretty straightforward. Graphic designers are pretty straightforward. Web design and programming, SEO, SEM, media buying and PR. I mean, these are all skill sets that you have, but keep in mind that some of these skill sets overlap, and not all these skill sets are a single person. Unless you're a 100-person marketing department, many of these skills are not full-time jobs, but they're just skills that you want on your team. And be careful what you ask for when you're searching for employees or freelancers. I think of that NFL or college football kicker. They want to kick the ball, but when you see in the picture here, they don't necessarily want to be tackling running backs. And so, I'll see ads where someone will advertise for someone to do graphic design and copywriting and website programming and PR and, just about everything that the employer would want. And that's great for the employer if they can find that unicorn. But oftentimes some of the top talent won't apply for that because, let's say, a graphic designer, they want to do graphic design. They don't necessarily want to do some of the other things that you're looking for. So again, just be careful not to ask the kicker and say, by the way, we're going to want you to tackle big, tough running backs, because you won't get very good kickers that apply. So here's the other question is, how do you manage and keep those people? Well, one to start out with is be clear about objectives. An objective to me is achievable, specific, measurable. A good example is we want to get to the top of that mountain before it's dark. And be open-minded when it comes to the branding and marketing strategies. The owner of the company might want to scale that sheer face in an hour, where the marketing team said, if we walk around the backside, we can walk up without ropes, and it might take us 2 hours, but it's a different strategy for getting up to the top of that mountain before dark. So again, be open-minded when it comes to the branding and marketing strategies that your team has, or encourage your leadership to do the same. Another tip is being specific. Make sure the team knows the difference between branding and marketing initiatives. Branding is more of a long sales cycle. It's creating awareness. It's focused on the non-product value that companies bring. A lot of brands are measured on a balance sheet, where marketing is more that short-term sales cycle. It's generating sales leads, focusing on product and service sales. And if you if you hire someone who's focused on branding and you're looking for sales lead generation, everybody's going to be frustrated. So it's really important to make sure that you're specific in what you're looking for from your marketing team. And if you want to keep your talent, make sure they know that they can succeed by getting on the same page right away. You don't want your owners thinking you're going to build a tunnel and the marketing people are wanting to build a bridge, because people are going to be surprised. Put expectations in writing and ask them to do the same thing. True story. I once saw an owner of a company that manufactured campfire starters, and the owner of the company spent their entire annual budget on a national radio campaign. And it just blew my mind. The marketing director was frustrated because they had recently been tasked with getting product placed in distribution and on retail stores. And what they ended up with was consumers hearing about products that were not available to them, and there's no money left to invest in building that sales channel, getting distributors on board, getting retailers on board. This is one of the train wrecks I mentioned before. So get aligned on strategy. How are we going to grow the business? What are we going to do early on? And owners don't like when I tell them this, but sometimes that phrase, stay in your lane, it can be difficult for company founders to let go. They pour their blood, sweat, and tears into the company, and they've been successful. And after all, they should be entitled to weigh in on decisions that affect their business. But there's a reason that Tom Brady has so many YouTube videos of him dropping an F-bomb on the field, is he wants to call the plays. And when the people above him, the offensive coordinator or the head coach, want to call the plays, he's not in control of his team. And when he loses the game, he takes the heat. So I always encourage leaders or owners of companies to enable your marketing professionals to do their jobs, stay out of the nitty gritty, and really try and pick your battles. If there's something that's really important, that's your prerogative to step in, but work on building trust and letting the marketing professionals do their job. You'll keep people longer, and they'll be more effective. And collaborate with your team. What a great opportunity it is for a company where they started to build out their marketing team and they want to define their mission, vision, and values. That's the foundation for all internal messaging for your employees, all of your internal audiences. I remember a president of a company where he dictated the mission, vision, and values on his own without any input from the employees. It was a disaster. And getting the marketing team involved will not only deliver better results, it'll go a long way in keeping them engaged and happy. That marketing team's more likely to interact with the employees and survey them and start to build a mission, vision, value statement based on the organization as a whole and reflect that culture. The same thing also applies to formulation of your core purpose. Your core purpose is a customer-focused effort and the foundation for your sales and marketing efforts. It's the base for your slogans, your elevator speeches, your brand story. It helps your salespeople talk about your value outside of products, services, and price. And your marketing team should be given the opportunity to lead the effort to draft and build this core purpose statement. They can strengthen those teams. If you're not sure how to facilitate this, bring in a third party. There's tons of talent out there that this is what they do day in and day out. And lastly, marketing without a written strategy should be considered malpractice. You or your marketing leadership should build a written plan that details all of these items. Start with a SWOT analysis. Identify what your current situation is. Clearly define what success looks like by setting objectives. And be relentless in defining the various target audience segments that you're trying to reach. You'd be surprised how helpful this is to keeping everyone pointed in the same direction. Write out your value proposition. It sounds simple until you sit in front of that blank sheet of paper, and then you're like, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. And once you've done that strategy work, rely on your media planner to select the right media. If I were selling things that senior citizens would be looking for, well, I would be interested in print media. But if I'm looking for things that are going to appeal to millennials, I'm probably not going to have a lot of print in my media plan. And keep in mind that the people that sell media are not objective enough to provide media planning services. It's not uncommon for a radio salesperson to say, hey, I'll help you plan your media. Well, you're going to be buying a lot of radio, and it may not be objective or suited to what your needs are. So a comprehensive marketing plan should include these at a minimum. Marketing is messy work, and whether it's your director of marketing or an outside consultant, a talented marketing professional will enable you to be effective and help grow your business. So with that, I'd like to open the floor to questions. I covered a few things there, and I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to chime in.
I am not seeing any questions that came through on the chat, but does anyone have any final thoughts or questions? Oh. Quiet group today. Well, oh. There was one. Did you see that question, or did you want me to read that? What training do you recommend for a sole marketing individual?
That's a great question. I always feel sorry for that one person marketing team. And I think that depending on the skill set as far as what that person wants to do, sometimes people are a fantastic graphic designer and that's what they want to do. And they don't necessarily want to do some of the other things, but I'm assuming that with that question that they want to maybe grow into that marketing director or leading that marketing team. I think back to that movie Good Will Hunting. I think it was with Matt Damon, where he's talking about, if you spend $100,000 on an education you could have got at the public library for a $1.50 in late fees, I think is what he said. But there's some really good core reading materials. I could provide somebody with a list of some of the things that I've read that I thought were really valuable. It also depends on if you've gotten a degree in marketing or if that's something you aspire to do. I'm a big believer in, you know, earning a bachelor's degree in marketing. Um, you know, that may even be something where if you haven't earned that your employer may be interested in helping you pay for that. Um, so as far as specific training, I think I'd have to say that depends on what it is you're trying to pick up. And working in the marketing world, networking, belonging to AdFeds or some of these advertising associations, um, you know, can all lead to some of those ideas. You know, and there's so much to be said for experience too. I earned my bachelor's degree in marketing, and you know, I thought, you know, here I go. I can talk about my 4 Ps and product place, promotion, and you know, really thought I nailed it. Then I got into working for a manufacturer, and I realized how quickly that those were just fundamentals. And um, you know, part of the training that I think is valuable for anyone that's a sole marketing individual is to spend time with salespeople in the field. Um, you know, asking customers questions, and you know, finding out what some of those unmet needs are. I'll give you a really good example. Is we work with a company called Dakota Supply Group, and they supply electrical, plumbing, HVAC, waterworks, you know, all these different segments to the building trades. And they, through their investigations, found out that one of their that a lot of their customers were electrical contractors that were working for someone, and they went out and got their own truck and started their own business, and figured out that they knew how to be an electrician, but they didn't know how to budget and hire and plan and all those things. And so they started a curriculum for these electrical contractors to teach them about budgeting and training and all these things that were not part of being an electrician. And it was so powerful. It was a non-product value that they offered to these electricians that, you know, 10 years later, there were very successful electrical contractors that would say, you know, if it wasn't for the training that they offered me, I'm not sure I would have made it. I was not charging enough money for my services, or et cetera, et cetera. So that was phenomenal to hear that. Oh, I see another question here. I've been told networking in the community to meet others in the marketing field is a waste of time. You know, I'm only asking to spend 3 hours a month trying to meet others in marketing in my area to grow. There's 60 plus people in the community to network there. I'm trying to grow my network and find a mentor. If you think this is worth it, how should I present it to ownership? Yeah, that's a tough one. Marketing is very much a relationship business, and yeah, it surprises me, I guess, if you know, that someone would view that as a waste of time. Sometimes employers get a little freaked out if their talent is out networking because they're afraid that someone will hire them away from them, so they're trying to keep them inside. But I think that networking is where you have an opportunity to find ideas or learn ideas that you can bring back that are valuable to your ownership. So how to present it to them, you know, again, that depends. I'd be curious to know why they don't want, other than a waste of time, and why they wouldn't want you out in those areas. I'm not sure if I answered your question there or not. You know, it's great that you're looking for a mentor. You know, 30 years ago, I had a mentor that, gosh, just about every day, I think of some of the lessons and things that he taught me, and it's just invaluable what I got from that. So Sarah, one thing I'd be curious about is if you have your own personal professional development plan, things that you intend to do to grow. And most employee owners are interested in hearing, how you're going to grow and evolve and improve your skill set and be a more valuable employee to them. And sometimes that may involve getting out, or networking sometimes is also achieved in a professional development opportunity where you're learning about things that you can bring back and share with the company. And that might be a way to get out more and have your employer see value in that. I'd be curious to hear from the group too. If this group is primarily that one person marketing team, or if there's any business owners or founders in this group. I don't know if people on the chat, if you wouldn't mind, weighing in on what your role is there, or how many people on your team. I see your follow-up comment there about networking is the key to learning and staying innovative. It doesn't have to be in the same industry. Yeah, you're right on. There's marketing networking groups where you can really improve your skill sets there, and finding a mentor. Yeah, I think you're spot on. Even you talk about staying innovative, and you make a great point. When I started with Anchor 13 years ago, I was looking down in our basement. We had this wall that had all this collateral that we'd made for clients, print media, brochures and whatnot. And oh gosh, 5 years ago, that really transitioned, and we weren't adding anything print wise to that wall. And if we just stayed in our little echo chamber and didn't look at what the industry was doing or things that were changing, we would not have been relevant, to the clients that we're serving. Oh, great, independent contractor. So there you go. Somebody who can focus on exactly what they want to do and what they're good at, and good for you. Business development, my role overlaps with sales and marketing every day. Yeah, you're right. The lines can be blurry. I think that effective marketers do have some sort of a dialogue with the sales group. That's where they get all they learn about opportunities, and it can really help you craft the value proposition that they need to tell, and put it in a story that they can tell. So if people, if they have questions, if you want to reach out online, I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have. Some things aren't always easy to ask in a public chat, so I welcome that too. My cell phone number is probably the best way to reach me.
That sounds great. And I know there was a lot of great information. There were a couple of comments. That was a lot of great details and info. So I will be sure to send the recording out to everybody in case anyone wants to review presentation and content today. So.
Yep. I think the most important takeaway with this whole thing, or two things really, is that finding talent today is going to rely heavily on how you portray your company. Top talent doesn't necessarily want to, they don't want a project. They don't want to work on an organization that maybe isn't real marketing friendly. And that talent is scarce. So I appreciate everyone's time this morning. I hope there's some value here. Again, if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Well, we certainly want to thank you, Hal, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. So we will have another marketing webinar continuing on in our series, and it'll be the third Wednesday of each month. So keep a lookout for details. So thank you again.
Yep, thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye now.